Hey guys, welcome to Brian's Man Cave. So today is just kind of it's more of a question than a topic, because I just wanted to really bring out the question of why does trying to bring back retro stuff, rebooting, often fail? Because you see a lot of it happening, especially within the last decade and a half, I would say, with all the reboots. I mean, recently, as I'm recording this, the Ghostbusters teaser trailer for, I guess, what's going to be, or what we're all assuming is going to be Ghostbusters 3. It might not. I mean, it might be just a continuation of the story, but a completely different name. We don't know. I mean, it's just a teaser. But it seemed to get a huge reaction. I mean, from just a little tiny trailer. And apparently even, I guess a year ago, it was even announced at one of the convention things. I don't know what it was, if it was like Comic-Con or something like that. But apparently it was already, brought forward that there will be a continuation to the Ghostbusters story. And, it's something that we've been waiting for many years. And, we're all big fans of the original Ghostbusters. Or at least I am. I don't know if everybody is, but I'm a big fan of the original Ghostbusters. I really love the characters. I saw the movie in theater. As a kid, I was, obsessed with Ghostbusters. And we even had a sequel, which was okay. And then that was it. It was over. The whole Ghostbuster thing was over. Well, wasn't over because we got a reboot. And it came in the form of this, which is, called Ghostbusters. It says Ghostbusters. It has the Ghostbuster logo on it. But it's all different characters. And of course, this this came with its own controversies. Some of it had to do with the fact that it was female cast. Some of it had to do with the fact that it was a complete reboot. And, there was just a whole lot of stuff going on here. And, ultimately, I don't know if this failed or not. I watched it in theater. I thought it was great. It had a little bit of nostalgia to it. They had the original cast in there. Not as the original characters, but the original cast was in there. Well, most of them. And, it just kind of felt like it was a nostalgia trip. But, at the same time, was that what we wanted? Did we really want just a big, huge nostalgia trip? Or did we actually want a continuation of the movie we loved? And, I think a lot of people didn't feel they got that out of that movie. And whether they're ever going to create a sequel to that, or if they're done with that and then they're just going to continue on with a whole new continuation of the first story, we're going to have to wait and see. But, I mean, it's not just that movie. I mean, there's been a lot of movies that have come out that were from my childhood, and they kind of rebooted them, and it seemed like they failed, like Nightmare on Elm Street. I was kind of excited when they first announced that they were doing a reboot of A Nightmare on Elm Street. A Nightmare on Elm Street was a movie I'm really fond of when I was a kid. I probably watched it when I was, 8 or something like that. I probably shouldn't have watched it, but I did. And I saw all the sequels, pretty much every one of them, up until, even the last few that came out, not that long, I guess you're talking, 20 years? I don't know. Whenever the last one came out, the one with versus Jason, and there was also the new Nightmare, which was before. So I watched all the original Freddy movies. So I was excited to see this new Freddy movie coming out. But, we knew it was a different actor. We knew that it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to connect to the original storyline. And it didn't do too well. I mean, I saw it in theater. I walked out of it going, it was okay. I didn't know what to think of it. And it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, well, it didn't really work. RoboCop is another example of that. I loved RoboCop when I was a kid. Again, I probably shouldn't have saw it when I was the age, I saw it at. But I loved RoboCop. I became obsessed with it. I loved the characters. I loved even the sequel was okay. The third one was terrible. The TV show was terrible. But that's my opinion anyways. But, to me, that it just didn't seem like it was a series that really could have been rebooted. And they did. They tried. And I don't think it did very well. I doubt there's going to be a sequel to it. I think it was just, And funny enough, the same guy that played Freddy in the reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street was in the RoboCop movie. Whatever. But yeah, it just didn't really, it didn't connect. And even though they threw in a few oddball lines in there that were reminiscent of the original RoboCop, it still just didn't work. You know, I probably had my problems with it, but I don't know. Maybe it's because it's PG rating or whatever it was. They changed it, and that could be why. I mean, why do these movies not live up to their expectations? Is it because they have to conform to a modern audience, and these previous things were all a completely different generation, so they were able to appeal to a different generation? Is it that the standards of trying not to create something too gory, too violent, too bloody, too much swearing, could that be it? Obviously, that's not going to be the case with Ghostbusters. It's just pure nostalgia, and people don't really want their nostalgia to try and come back. They just want to keep it in the past and, you know, still collect the old stuff and just have fun with it. Even video games, for that matter. I'm a big retro fan. You know that. I play a lot of Atari stuff. And, you know, I typically play on a real Atari when I can. Obviously, some things I can't, like when I do my streaming, I have to use my computer, but at this point, you know, I always like to play on the original hardware. And you can still get the original hardware. I mean, this is like from 1989, I think this was. You could still get the cartridges. You could find them almost all over the place. Flea markets and stuff. So you could still track this stuff down. But, you know, there's still things like these, the flashback, which are being created on an ongoing basis. I mean, there's a lot of these little systems coming out. Just recently, we had the PlayStation flashback. There's the NES Classic. So you could buy all these emulation devices, but a lot of people have problems with them. Even to some degree, the Retron 77, which is a modern kind of system that plays original Atari hardware, but, I mean, there's problems with it. Why is that? Why do we have a hard time recreating these things that we had from, say, the 80s? Is it a budget thing? Is it just they don't want to invest too much into it? Is it our technology? Is it our parts? Like, what is it? Like this thing here, this Atari is sturdy. Almost every Atari I've seen is pretty damn sturdy. Especially the original Heavy Sixers and the Light Sixers, which were the original line that came out back in 1978, around that time. I mean, those things are built like a tank, and they still work today. But you kind of compare that with some of these modern stuff, you're lucky to get 2-3 years out of it. I've heard people say things like, I'm on my third Xbox, you know, and I'm like, well, geez, I still have an Atari from 1978, and it still works. So perhaps it's the manufacturing. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question as to why does a lot of this stuff that they just try and bring back, it either fails completely or it's just not as good. They just can't get it. They just can't get it right. And is it a problem? I mean, do we want it to be right? Do we want this stuff coming back, or do we just want to leave it in the past the way it was, or, you know, maybe just refurbish what we had in the past? I mean, there's always going to be those, you know, those fine lines of people who say you got to stick with the original, you got to stick with the classics. But when it comes to things like movies and toys, and that, you know, toys do it all the time too. I mean, Transformers, they're still making Transformers. I actually just did a video. It's not out yet at the time I'm doing this one, but I talk about this little guy, Bumblebee, which looks like the original Bumblebee Transformer that I would have had when I was a kid. And it's, you know, I bought this on the shelf not that long ago. Is it as good as the original, though? Are the parts as good? Is it manufactured the same way? And the price points. I mean, is it worth paying that kind of money for something that's kind of like a reproduction? And is it good? But yeah, that's what I just wanted to talk about, because it just seems like within the last decade or so, a lot of nostalgia is coming back, and it just seems to be that is the you know, the thing for movies. Anyways, like, there's even an announcement that there's going to be a second Twins movie, which I love Twins. That was with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito. I watched that when I was a kid. I still love watching it today. And to think that after all these years, now they're making a second one. Just like they did with Dumb and Dumber. Another classic movie. Well, that was in the 90s. But, you know, it took them 20 years before they made a sequel. And did it turn out as good as we hoped? I don't know. I mean, it was okay. It was great seeing them again, but did it work? I don't know. Doesn't have the magic that the first one had. Anyways, yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to bring this up because I just see this being like a pattern of stuff coming back, stuff trying to come back, and you either get a lot of bittersweet about it. A lot of people are like, you know, you can't bring back the classics, you can't reboot the classics, you just can't do it. But then there's a lot of people that are like, hey, this is awesome, I love that this is coming back. We're reintroducing this stuff to our children. You know, my kid plays a lot of Nintendo and a lot of classic stuff, so it's cool to reintroduce this stuff back to them. And maybe just people today ran out of ideas, and the best stuff was in the 80s and the 90s. I don't know. That could just be it too. Anyways, I'd love to hear what your opinion is. Let's start a conversation. Leave some comments below on what you think, some feedback. Just, you know, your opinion. What movies did you like that were rebooted, if any? Same with video games and toys. I mean, everything I pretty much talk about on this channel has somewhat resurfaced in the last 5 to 10 years from what I thought would have been buried in my past. Anyways, hope you liked the video. Hope you subscribe to my channel. Talk to you later.